Good morning, everyone. Happy to meet you after a long time. Corona disaster is still continuing, so it takes time for us to meet in person. Maybe we may be able to meet in the month of January. I hope and I pray, and I am anxiously waiting to meet you all in person. Okay, let us study a prose lesson. The portrait of a lady. The first lesson you have to study in this year. The portrait of a lady. So, portrait, picture. So, it's a picturization of a lady, not of a woman. What is the difference between a woman and a lady? Can you tell me? All ladies are women, but all women are not ladies. So what is the difference? See, when you salute someone or address someone or a gathering, we will call them ladies and gentlemen. Is it not so? So, what is the difference between man and gentleman? Yes, a gentleman, not simply man. Same way, woman and lady. See, lady means a woman of refined character. Gentle woman is lady. You think that way, you will understand that. Man and gentleman. All men are not gentle, no? You know it. All men are not gentle. So we expect gentle behavior, gentle nature, etc. That is gentleman. In the same way, a gentle woman, a woman of refined character, we call them as lady or ladies. So here it is a portrait of a lady. Actually, it is a story of his own, the author's own grandmother, by Khushwant Singh. Yes, you might have heard of him, the famous Indian writer, politician, a journalist. Okay, so Khushwant Singh from 1915 to 2014. Remember the period? Born in the year 1915, before independence in India. In India at that time, but he was born in Punjab, which is a part of Pakistan now. That Punjab is not in India now, in Pakistan. From 1915 to 2014, yes, he was a journalist, writer. He wrote many books and novels in English, and his experience of the partition of India 1947 made him or prompted him to write the book Train to Pakistan. Train to Pakistan. It was so famous, it made him so famous too. Yes, it deals with some of the bare truths of that partition. So, in connection with that, I remember another book, Freedom at Midnight. Have you heard of that? Larry Collins and Dominic Lapierre, Freedom at Midnight. Yes, some unpleasant truths regarding our partition and those, some, even now, we might not be able to digest them. Even if you get a chance to read it, once read the book Freedom at Midnight by Larry Collins and Dominic Lapierre. Okay, both of them not Indians. Anyhow, so Train to Pakistan made him so famous, and he continued with his writing 2014. Until 2014 he was going on writing. And he was given, Padma Bhushan in the year 1974, which he returned to the government of India in the year 1984 in protest against Blue Star Operation. Do you remember, have you heard of Blue Star Operation? Indian Army entered a Golden Temple complex. Some terrorists were hiding there. It was order of Indira Gandhi. You read, you will understand. And she had to pay the price for that with her own life. She was assassinated by her own bodyguards. Is it not so? Yes. So, in protest against Blue Star Operation, he returned the award given to him in the year 1984. And later on, he was given awarded Padma Vibhushan in the year 2007. 2007. Padma Vibhushan, you know, the second highest civilian gallantry award. What is highest? Bharat Ratna is the top. Bharat Ratna, Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan and Padma Shri. Civilian awards. Should know all these things. Okay, so we are going to study in a way a story, a prose lesson by Lady-Khushwant Singh. Yes, the portrait of a lady. So, shall we begin? I hope all of you have got textbooks with you. Okay, now? Yes. The third page, first lesson is easy to take. So, let us go to the first paragraph. Look into the textbook, all of you. My grandmother. Like everybody's grandmother. So, we will have an idea of our grandmother if she is not alive. Okay, grandmother, not mother. So, old lady, that is a concept. Like everybody's grandmother, she was an old woman. Generally, grandparents, grandmothers. Like everybody's grandmother, yes, she was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for 20 years that I had known her, says the author. I had known her for the last 20 years, and all these 20 years she had been an old lady. That means since my childhood I do remember her as old lady, old woman. Is it not so? In one way, people said that she had once been young and pretty. People told me that I was told that once upon a time she had been young and pretty. Pretty means attractive, beautiful. Okay. There was a time for her too. Young and attractive. Yes. And had even had a husband. See, the author had seen her only as grandmother, old lady. So he could not imagine her as young, energetic, married with a husband and children. That thought does not come to his mind. That's a problem. That's what he is explaining here. I can't remember her as young lady with a husband, children, etc. Take for example, do you remember the old lady of Titanic cinema? Have you seen cinema Titanic? In the beginning we see an old lady and who recognizes her portrait, her picture of young lady Rose, Jackie and Rose. Do you remember? Yes. So look at that old lady. So wrinkled face, very old, unable to walk, with some bend on her back. If you have seen only that old lady, you can never imagine that it is the same, one and same as our young, energetic, beautiful Rose. If you have seen only that old lady, you can never imagine her as the real Rose. Is it not so? Right? That is what here it is. That is what. So whenever I remember, as long as I remember last 20 years, I remember her as old lady. So I can't imagine that my grandmother once upon a time was young, beautiful, energetic, and even had a husband. So I can't imagine such a way, because as long as I could remember, she was old. In what way? Let us see. But that was hard to believe. I could not believe, I can't believe that she was young and beautiful too. My grandfather's portrait. Grandfather was dead years and years before, but his picture hung above the mantelpiece, something like a shelf with some mirror, etc. See, so this mantelpiece, like a shelf on the side of the room. So it was hanging above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. Grandfather's picture was there. You see, where is it? He wore a big turban and loose fitting clothes. The great grandfather, a long big cap, that is turban. Yes, you see, there are big turban and loose fitting clothes. Not young people wearing tight fitting clothes, tight fitting, not that. Old man, grandfather. So loose fitting clothes, wearing loose fitting clothes and a big tall turban. A gentle looking grandfather. So wonderful. A portrait it was. Is it not so majestic looking? See, majestic looking grandfather with the loose garments and a tall turban, wearing that. His picture was there on that, above the mantelpiece. Yes, his long white beard covered his best part of his chest. White beard, this one, get up, is it not so? It stretches up to his chest, up to here, it is coming, stretching, so long it is. In that way only I could imagine him. How can I imagine he was so young and energetic, running here and there, having a beautiful wife and children. I can't imagine. That's what. I can't imagine him in such a way. Yes. And he looked at least 100 years old. By looking at the portrait or picture, I can imagine him only as an old man of 100 years of age. That's the difference. So I can't imagine him as a young boy. A young man, I can't. In the same way, as long as I could remember, my grandmother is very old lady. Yes, 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. He doesn't seem to have a wife or children. I can't imagine him as a man with a wife and children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. So I can imagine him as a grandfather with a lot of grandchildren around him. See, so many children around, and he is standing in the middle of them all. So gigantic man, so wonderful an appearance. I could imagine, or I can imagine only in such a way. So my concept of grandmother, grandfather. So in a different way, I can't imagine, because I am accustomed to, I am familiar with only in such kind of a grandfather and such kind of a grandmother. Yes. Okay. See, as for my grandmother being young and pretty, to imagine my grandmother as a young and pretty girl, the thought was almost revolting. Yes. The thought was almost revolting. That is the first phrase to study from this lesson. That is why it is given in bold letters. So what does it mean? The thought was almost revolting, which means very hard to believe. The thought was revolting means very hard to believe, very difficult to believe. I couldn't believe that. Mark that and write the meaning there itself in the textbook and write. So the first phrase to study from this lesson is the thought was almost revolting, which means very hard to believe. The thought of my grandmother being young with lots of children around, or a young girl living happily with her husband, it was almost revolting, which means hard to believe. I couldn't believe that she was once upon a time an young girl. And my grandfather too. See, with his, wonderful portrait, see, gigantic portrait with a tall turban, etc., majestic executive look, I couldn't imagine him as a young man with a wife and children. So I could imagine him with, as a grandfather with lots of children around. Grandfather means so many children and their children. So all the people coming around. So I could imagine my grandfather as only grandfather, not as a young man. And grandmother also, I couldn't imagine her as young, pretty and beautiful. Because as long as I could remember, I had seen the grandmother as old woman, old lady, and grandfather the same way. She often told us of the games she used to play as a child. Grandparents would come and tell many stories, the heroic stories of their childhood. You see, they would tell how they behaved during their younger days when they were young. You see, she used to tell us many stories. Of the games she used to play as a child. What all games she used to play when she was a child. That seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part. See, this absurd is foolish. We couldn't believe that. Absurd and undignified, not dignified on her part, as we treated it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. Prophet means in a general sense. For example, the wonderful stories of gods and goddesses in the scriptures. See, grandparents would come and say what kind of stories? Stories of great gods like Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, Arjuna, wonderful heroes and their wonderful achievements from Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. and etc. Okay, now. So, we would listen, for example, Ravana with the 10 heads and all. For children, it's very nice to hear, 10 heads for one man. Isn't it so? What a wonderful idea that is. So, children is so wonderful to hear, they would like that kind of stories, not original real stories. So, when she says these kinds of stories of her younger days, how she used to play, etc., we took it in the same way as the story of a Ravana or someone like that, or Arjuna or Bhima. Isn't it wonderful stories? So, in the same way, we took those stories in the same way that we used to hear wonderful stories of wonderful characters from the, scriptures or from, Puranas. So, we could not take it as real stories. We could not imagine them as real, stories happened in her own life. We could not imagine such a way. Yes. That seemed quite absurd and undignified of her. Why? Because we treated it like the fables or the prophets' fable stories. She used to tell us. So we took those stories as another story that she used to tell us. About the prophets of, Puranas or something like that. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent. As long as I could remember, she had been short, not so tall, and little fat, and a slightly bent. See, little bend was there. She was not walking straight. Old woman now, so not that healthy. Okay, now whenever anyone becomes old, some bend might happen because not so strong body, weak, etc., etc. So as long as I could remember, she had been short with little bend, etc. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles. See, wrinkles, wrinkles would come. Your beauty on your face or your body would go when you become old. Then wrinkles would be there. And crisscross, that means like crossed lines. So many wrinkles would be there on your skin. Isn't it so? That is why it is told beauty is not skin deep. Your beauty would go after some time and wrinkles would appear on your face, not only on your face, on your body. You remember how that old lady was in that cinema, what is that? Titanic. Okay, so what kind of wrinkles she had on her face. Now she is no more. You must remember that she was an actress actually, not reality. Okay, so expired, I think last year. Okay. So, a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. All part of her body, it was there, not only face. So, skin all wrinkled. As long as I could remember, yes, so crisscross wrinkles were there on her body. No, we were certain she had always been. She had always been as we had known her. I imagined that she had been in the same way as long as I could remember. Old, so terribly old. Old lady, grandmother, terribly old. That she could not have grown older. So she always remains as an old lady. No growing, was not young also. Same way. See, as long as I could remember her, she was an old lady. Same way, no change. Once you become old, what change can happen? She won't grow, fat, or you won't grow tall or something. Same way, some changes here and there is all. Always remaining old. So, I could remember her as only old lady. Yes, she could not have grown older and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. I think that she remains at the same age for a last 20 years. She could never have been pretty. I can't imagine her as pretty or beautiful, but she was always beautiful. Yes, in this way, she was always beautiful. So her appearance is so beautiful, an old lady, our grandmother, my grandmother, but she is always beautiful in the same way. Yes. So she hobbled about the house in spotless white. See, hobble means walk with difficulty. See, our grandparents don't walk as you people walk, so fast, so quick, with the quick steps not. So walking unsteadily, etc. Hobbled about the house in spotless white with one hand resting on her waist, white dress, plus white hairs. With one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop. See, waist here. See, one hand to balance her stoop. She would try not to stoop. To balance her stoop or bending. And her other telling the beads of her rosary. Yes. Beads means small balls on the rosary. Something like Rudraksha you might have seen. The sannyasis, etc. They would be saying something to count it. So at a stage there will be 10, then one will be there, then another 10. So rosary, okay, rosary, something like Rudraksha, okay. Beads are that small balls on that rosary. Rosary means something like Rudraksha, okay. So you can count it without looking, counting, remembering it. When one prayer is over, you turn that rosary, then another one more, when it is repeated once again. So if you want to repeat 10 times, just turn the balls on that rosary. Okay, now that is what? That is the beads. So the beads of her rosary. See, one hand will be resting on her waist, another will be on that rosary, turning the beads as she says the prayers. Very old woman, always telling prayers and doing that rosary or using that rosary. Counting the. Not counting exactly, turning that beads one by one. Okay. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face. Her silver locks of hair. See, some hair hanging, falling. Small one, not that long. Okay, silver colored. As white as snow, silver colored, hanging here. You see, were scattered untidy over her face. She does not spend much time on her beautification like you people, young people. You would spend many hours in front of a mirror, dressing table. Okay, now applying many kind of paste or some powder, etc., etc. Okay, so she won't spend any time for such kind of things. So it is kept scattered. It was always remaining scattered. Her pale means white, puckered face. You see, pucker means squeeze inwardly. Squeeze inwardly means not whole, some part would be going inside. Is it not so? That is what puckered. So puckered face. That means wrinkles should be there. Some squeezing inward also would be there on her face. Yes. And her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Audible can be heard. Audible means something that can be heard. Inaudible means it is not clear. She knows what she is praying. So slowly muttering or uttering some prayers, turning the beads of the rosary should be moving. So always moving. Okay now, form of white hairs, you see, and rosary in her hand. You could imagine. Just now imagine a grandmother, very old one, with white hairs, with a rosary in her hand, and one hand on that waist, unable to stand straight, so little bend, slowly moving and telling prayers. Imagine, slowly moving and telling prayers. A very old, good grandmother. Imagine your grandmother. In such a way, yes, she was beautiful. In such a way too, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains. Winter, snowing. See, snowing, snow falling slowly, like drizzling, snow falling and remaining on every part of that mountain, on every leaf, on every plant. See, snow-clad mountains during winter time. How beautiful it is to look at. Yes, she was just like, the winter landscape in the mountains. An expanse of pure white serenity. Another phrase number 2. You must study these phrases. Phrase number 2. See, an expanse of pure white serenity. Pure and white serenity means calmness. Mark that phrase. An expanse of pure white serenity means calm and serene character. Yes, a symbol of serene means calm and quiet and gentle character. She was a symbol of gentle and calm and quiet character. That is a portrait he pictures. About his grandmother. The lesson name, Portrait of a Lady, is in every way a gentle character. Yes, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. So she is breathing peace and contentment, satisfaction. Some people are there, symbol of peace, calm and quiet. Some people are just opposite, is it not so? Always murmuring somebody's fault and blaming someone, telling always negative things. Some people are just the opposite. So she is a symbol of calm and quiet, peace and serenity. You go to some kind of people, that kind of people, you get some positive energy from them. They always speak good things about others. They always speak only good things about others. Even if some bad things are there, they would say in a mild, polished way that you don't feel that blame. Some people, small fault also, they would exaggerate and make a big fault and pour all the bad things on them, that you get that negative energy on you. You don't like to go and sit with them. Really. So here it is, she's symbol of what? Peace and contentment, satisfaction, symbol of serenity, calmness, peace and satisfaction. Was my grandmother, the portrait of a lady, my grandmother. How nice a picture it is. Just imagine a grandmother, a symbol of calm and quiet, always talking nice things, telling nice things to everyone around her. Everybody loves her presence. Everybody likes to be with her. So nice a character. The portrait of a lady. Next paragraph. My grandmother and I were good friends. No doubt we were good friends. My grandmother and me. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city. My childhood I spent with my grandmother. My parents left, me with her. I was with my grandmother when they went to live in the city. And we were constantly together very often. See, constantly means continuously we were together. Myself and my grandmother, we were together. She used to wake me up in the morning. It was she who used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She used to get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer in the monotonous sing song. Early morning prayers in the monotonous means boring. I don't like it. I did not like it. So she would be telling her prayers in a sing song way, in a musical way, while she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. See, while dressing me and arranging me for the school also, she would say the prayers. Imagining that, expecting that I would learn these prayers by heart. So that was her expectation. She thought that I would listen it as I had been listening these prayers every day. I would learn them by heart. I listened because I loved her voice. Actually, I listened these prayers not because I liked them, but because I loved her sweet voice. But never bothered to learn it. I never bothered to learn them. These prayers of my grandmother, she used to, in a way, singing. So sweetly. I never tried to learn them. Yes. Then she would fetch my wooden slate going to school, nursery class, etc. Wooden slate was there, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk. She would clean it because coming from the nursery class, etc., you would bring all dirty things. And the slate also won't be neat and clean. And she would do all those things. A tiny earthen ink pot during that time, before independence. See, this kind of modern, ball pens and ink pens were not there. See, a small pot of ink would be there. You have to dip into that and write. Okay, an ink pot and red pen, tie them all in a bundle and hand it to me. A pen, a pencil, all those things she would tie in a bundle and hand it over to me. Okay, after a breakfast of thick stale chapati, thick and stale also means cold, not hot. Okay, stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it. Little butter would be there spread on it and sugar also. We went to school. It was she who used to take me to school. Yes, she carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs on her way to the school. She would carry some more chapatis with her, and she was so lovable to all creatures. Yes, see, she loved everybody and everything, not only human beings, even animals too. Street dogs she loved. See, we won't give food even to our domestic dogs. Somebody would be there, some servant or some ayah would be there, she would go and give food. So, do you go to your, pet dog and feed it and show your love towards it? Yes, they would identify, recognize it. In such a way, they would love you back. In whatever way you love them, they love you back. If they are fed and taken care of by your ayahs or someone like that, they won't love you. They would love that ayahs only. Okay, anyhow, so she carried some stale chapatis with her in order to give to the street dogs. My grandmother always went to school with me because she always came to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. Yes, school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer. The priest in the temple taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer. See, do you remember how you were taught, the alphabet, etc.? In ancient times, it was not like that. Someone would be there, one teacher, and so all the children around sitting, and he would be standing with a stick. Even nursery class also, you could imagine, when you were made to learn this alphabet, they were so strict they should learn. You go with a pot full of sand, white sand, you spread there, you are made to write these letters A or A, and he would be or she would be standing with a stick, and you are asked to write A, then you would look at them with a frightened face, you would say such a way. Do you remember that? When you went to school for the first time to learn the alphabet, etc., etc., do you remember that? But imagine how you were. when you went to learn this alphabet in your nursery class. Okay, now you are much afraid. Sometimes your mother will be waiting outside or some a little far away to see what you are doing there. You could imagine. Okay, now you too had a childhood like that. How hard it been? Or you were lucky enough to start learning some nursery rhymes, etc., etc. Baba, black sheep, or twinkle, twinkle, little star. That is the way nowadays. So in the old days before it was not like that. One teacher would be there with a stick on his hand and he would be ordering, and students are so much afraid even to look at him. Okay, now made to learn this alphabet. Here the priest himself tells this alphabet and prayers too. Yes, the priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer. We were taught the alphabet as well as the morning prayer by the priest, while the children sat in a rows of either side of the veranda, singing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. You see, in group, sing the alphabet. After some time, he would say, you all sing together. Then they would say, A for apple, B for ball or boy. Then all would say, A for apple, B for boy, or B for ball. Okay. Then someone would say in the middle, A for apple, ball. Do you remember that? Then all will look at him. Okay, na? So, nursery class, nice memories you could recollect. Yes, prayer in a chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. During the time when we learned these alphabet of scriptures, my grandmother would be sitting inside the temple reading the scriptures. Scripture means holy books. Maybe Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavata. Yes, scriptures she used to read in the temple. When we had both finished, I would finish my alphabet and other things. She would finish her reading the scriptures. We would walk back together. We would return to our house together. This time the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. As we come out from the temple, the dogs would be waiting because they used to get it every day. You see, they know that our grandmother would give them some chapatis or something like that. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other. For the chapatis we threw to them. Yes, she would take it a small piece and throw it. These street dogs, they would fight, they would quarrel, they would get also. All would be given. Okay, because she would bring not one or two, so many chapatis in order to feed the dogs, street dogs. How gentle she is, the lady, old lady. Okay, now, portrait of a lady, because she loved even the street dogs, that she would feed them every day. She used to feed them every day. Yes. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, after some years, my parents were settled in the city comfortably. They sent for us. So we were taken to the city. That was a turning point in our friendship. Turning point, Phrase number 3 is very important incident that would turn the life. Okay, now a turning point of your career, a turning point of your life. So after 10th class, it's a turning point because what group to take. What subject to prefer is by PC or MPC or something like that. It's a turning point. If only you study by PC, you can go for MBBS or something like that. If only study mathematics and science in MPC, you can go for engineering. It's a turning point. This decision is very important, crucial or vital. What syllabus to take, what subjects to study is very important because in that direction only you can go in your life afterwards. A turning point of your career, of your life is a 10th class examination, because after that you prefer a subject, not studying all subjects as you studied in school level. After intermediate also is a turning point because what profession to take, what to continue with your studies. Okay, or some job oriented course you select. It's a turning point. So it was a turning point when we went from our native place to city. Okay, that is a turning point in our friendship. Yes, although we shared the same room, in the city also, I shared the same room with my grandmother. We stayed together even in the city. My grandmother no longer came to school with me. I was in the city, big school, and let's continue. I used to go to an English school, English medium school, in a motor bus. Yes, no more walking. I went by bus. By bus, by car, by train, by walking means on foot. I went or we went on foot. Never say by walk, on foot. Okay, it's a phrase you should remember, on foot. So, in a motorbike, in a motor bus, by bus we went to school. There were no dogs in the streets. Yes, in the city, no more street dogs. And she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house. As many sparrows came, she used to breed them, feed them. Where is it? In the courtyard of our city house. She continued feeding. Okay, now these creatures. It was sparrows that she used to feed them. Yes. As the years rolled by, years passed by or rolled by, we saw less of each other. Years passed by. I moved from lower classes to higher classes. Year by year, our meeting became very less. For some time, she continued to walk me up and get me ready for school. For few more years, she used to make me get up and get ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. When I came back, she used to ask me what all things had been taught in the school. I would tell her English words. So no more scriptures or prayers. I used to tell her what are English words and little things of Western science and learning. Small things of Western science and learning. English medium school, science and learning. Small things I used to tell her. Yes, the law of gravity, Archimedes principle, the world being round, etc. See, previously people believed the earth was flat. Later on, they had to believe the world was, round, etc. Okay, so small little things that I had learned in the school. Yes, this made her unhappy. Those things she could not believe that I was telling her. Okay, now, yes, Archimedes principle, etc., etc. Scientific matter she was unable to digest or to believe. She could not help me with my lessons. The worrisome factor was that she could not help me with my studies. She was unable to help me with my science studies or math studies or something like that. So unheard subjects for her. So she was so sorry that she could not help me with my studies. She did not believe the things they taught at the English school. She could not believe. She did not believe all those things taught in the English school. Okay, and was distressed that there was no teaching about God and the scriptures. No teaching about God and scriptures also. Scripture. What is that? Holy books. No teaching of Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. She was so worried also. One day I announced that we were being given music lessons. I told her that we are being taught music lessons. She was very disturbed. She was so disturbed to hear that I was learning music lessons. To hear music had lewd associations, means vulgar associations. Especially Western music and all, no. People will come and jump and dance with the cha-cha, 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. Is it not so? That kind of music, of course, she could not understand or agree with. So, vulgar association, dance and music, no, not good for children to learn, no. She was quite distressed or disappointed that I was being taught music lessons. It was the monopoly of harlots and beggars and not meant for gentlefolk. Harlots and beggars. Harlots means prostitutes actually. Beggars, that means indecent people. that they would learn this kind of music, etc. and etc. And not meant for gentlemen. She really believed that this kind of music, etc. was not meant for a gentleman. Okay, she said nothing, but she did not say anything. But her silence meant disapproval. She really disapproved the music lessons that I was learning in the school. Her silence meant disapproval of these lessons. She rarely talked to me after that. After learning from me that I was learning music lessons, she rarely or hardly or scarcely talked to me after that. She was so sorry that I was learning these music lessons in this class. And she was sorry that she could not help me with my lessons or science or math lessons also. Yes, that is a portrait of a lady. Not over. We will continue in the next video. Once read what we have seen today, and we will meet tomorrow. Thank you.